What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer, back for another week to talk some Inter Miami soccer and a lot going on as usual with this team. Lionel Messi, not a lot of goals, though, as he's chasing career goal number 900. It didn't come on Wednesday night against Nashville in the first leg of the Champions Cup round of 16 series against Nashville that was on the road. Team ended up in a scoreless draw. It's going to come down to next week's second leg, which will be played in Fort Lauderdale. One last game at the venue formerly known as Chase Stadium, now just Inter Miami Stadium, before the big move of Miami Freedom Park down the road. We're going to talk a little bit about the match. We're going to hear from Javier Mascherano talking about another major milestone for Messi that he's on the cusp of. Going to have to wait a week or not a week. We're going to wait till this weekend potentially if he can do it against Charlotte in the next league game. And we're going to talk about Inter Miami's White House visit with President Donald Trump and how that went. We're going to talk about the 2-1 victory. That was another big win in league play against DC United. A needed 6 points right now coming off that first loss to LAFC. Miami's bounced back in league play. And we're going to talk about Dane St. Clair, who, speaking of people who bounced back, the big acquisition in goal this offseason, had a rough start against LAFC, but made some huge saves against Nashville to preserve that 0-0 tie and give his club a chance to advance next week. We're going to talk about the way Miami's defense held Nashville's big stars, Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge, Christian Espinoza. They held them in check. The one bad news, Maxi Falcone out in the 5th minute with a knee injury. We'll talk a little bit about the extent and the concern level regarding that, but let's jump right into it. Michelle, Messi, we're spoiled by him, but this time no dice against Nashville.
What? No
one.
goal? Come on.
Nope.
What a slacker. What a slacker. He didn't get a
one.
goal. No, I mean, the truth is he had great success against Nashville. He had scored 15 goals in 10 games against Nashville, which is the most against any opponent since he joined MLS. And think about those numbers. I mean, 15 goals in 10 games against Nashville. And in fact, the previous two, I think he had a hat trick last season. At the end of last season, a hat trick in one game and a brace in the next game in the playoffs. So he really had great success. And I pretty much assumed that since he had so much success against them and he was going for number 900, and we know how competitive he is, that he would get number 900 last night in Nashville. But it was not to be. They figured out a way. Nashville figured out a way to stop him and the rest of the Miami attack. They ended up in a scoreless draw in the rain. It was pouring rain. It was bad conditions, but both teams are playing in the same conditions, so it's not really an excuse. But Miami was held scoreless, and Nashville was held scoreless. Now, Nashville was held scoreless largely because of Dane St. Clair made 3. He ended up with 5 saves, but 3 of them were pretty spectacular saves, really good saves that showed why he showed some of the skills of why he was MLS goalkeeper of the year last year. Mm-hmm. He had been, he's still adjusting. He has said it, and we're going to hear maybe in one of the clips today. And Javier Mascherano has said that he is still adapting to this style. When we spoke to Maxi Falcone the other day, I asked him about how he thinks the defense is playing. And he said that Dane St. Clair told him that this is a completely different style from what he was used to. And he played like 7 or 8 years in a row in Minnesota under a very specific system, which was much more defensive. And he said all of a sudden he's the keeper for a very offensive team that goes forward a lot and has a lot of counterattacks, as opposed to playing for a very defensive-minded team. So he's still getting adjusted, but you could see last night what he can do. And he made 3, one incredibly, 2, really good. Yeah. One, a very acrobatic save at the top. Another one that he had to have very good reflexes because it was a header from close range that was redirected, and he was able to see where it was and block that one too. And then he blocked another one. So he had a good game. Otherwise, that could have been for sure 2-0, if not 3-0. And so he preserved the clean sheet.
and we know how much Inter Miami is investing mentally into this Champions Cup. They want this bad because they've put this on even a, dare I say, a little bit of a higher pedestal going into the season than even the MLS Cup, even the repeat bid. I mean, I know they want to do that down the road, but they've prioritized winning this tournament. So a 0-0 start, it's not awful, but it's not what it's not what they wanted. They wanted to have that advantage.
Right.
Plus the fact that, tell me if I'm wrong, Michelle, road goals help in terms of tiebreakers, don't they, in this thing? So
yes,
getting none.
That is in this tournament. Yeah, you want road goals, because what happens is in this tournament, the first tiebreaker is goals away. So right now they have 0 goals away. So for example, like LAFC also ended up tying in their first game 1-1. They tied 1-1. So, Nashville tied 0, Miami was 0-0, LAFC tied, but you're already looking at some teams that won. LA Galaxy won 3-0. San Diego won 3-1 against Toluca, against Mexican team. Cruz Azul played Monterrey and they beat Monterrey 3-2. So, and America beat Philadelphia 1-0.
Right. Get into that one, which I think that's who they bracket with in the quarterfinals, I believe, is whoever comes out of that one. So, I mean, that's the thing.
So, not a great start. I mean, it's not bad. They're 0-0 now. It's in their hands. Mascherano said after the game, look, it's in our hands now. He said, Nashville's opponent, we both know each other very well. And so we both figured out ways to stop each other. And now we're going to be playing at home. And he did bring up one good point, which is that this will be the first time this year that Miami plays in front of its own fans. And I hadn't really thought about it, but it's true. We are already, it's going to be March 18th before this team plays they didn't even play a preseason game at home. And they will have played, and they will have already played 4 games on the road. This will be like their 6th game. It'll be their 6th game. It'll be their first game.
I forgot Puerto Rico. It might be
8. The Puerto Rico game. Yeah. And then they're going to play in Charlotte this coming weekend. So everything has been on the road. So Mascherano said, look, March 18th, return leg of Champions Cup in our stadium, in our old home, our old cozy home. Please, he was urging fans to please come and support them, because they need their help to advance to the quarterfinals. And this really is going to be the first chance to see this team in person on March 18th, which I hadn't really thought about, but it's true. All of the games have been on the road, even in the preseason. So this will be their first game where they get to sleep in their own beds the night before a game. So it really should be a home field advantage for them. And the way he sees it is, it's in their hands. It's at their home. All they have to do is win that game.
Yeah. And what better way to close out, they're going to keep using the facility, but what a better way to close out having their matches in that place than with a victory to advance to the quarterfinals. So that's what they're hoping for. Yeah, I think it's 8 matches overall if you count the preseason international tour that they've been away from South Florida, put it that way. Let's hear from Javier Mascherano talking about the match against Nashville.
Creo que tenemos que tener bien en claro que esto sea algo que nos genere ilusión y no una obsesión. Creo que cuando te obsesionas con algo no es bueno. Es una competición que nos ilusiona, es una competición que el club no ha conseguido tenerla, no es fácil, y sobre todo nos ilusiona porque el año pasado nos quedamos en la puerta de jugar una final, pero bueno, también sabemos que es una eliminatoria muy difícil. Nos enfrentamos a un rival que ha empezado muy fuerte en nuestra liga, de los mejores en nuestra conferencia, y bueno, que se ha reforzado bien y que realmente lo está haciendo bien. Los partidos son todos diferentes, claramente, pero bueno, ellos no han variado demasiado su manera de jugar, han cambiado nombres, le han quizás agregado jerarquía, sobre todo con Espinosa en el ataque, así que sobre todo sí, quizás es un punto de referencia, pero nosotros creemos que no hay 2 partidos iguales, y sobre todo sabemos que bueno, en Nashville es digamos, ellos jugando en casa es un equipo que que tiene mucha intensidad, que sobre todo los primeros minutos va a intentar presionarnos mucho, así que hay que estar preparado desde el primer minuto, sabiendo que es una eliminatoria de 180 minutos. Ha sido un comienzo de temporada extraño, donde venimos jugando mucho fuera. Claramente que bueno, que por eso mismo te digo, creo que este tipo de eliminatorias se juega con la cabeza también, ¿no? Es decir, entender de que es una eliminatoria de 180 minutos, donde es muy importante lo que pase mañana en Nashville, pero tener en claro de que hay un partido de vuelta. Entonces, lo importante para nosotros es hacer un buen partido, tratar de conseguir un buen resultado, tratar de marcar fuera, que eso nos va a permitir también tener una ventaja a la hora de poder definir acá.
Okay, so that's Javier Mascherano talking about the whole series. He said, first of all, we definitely want to win this. We don't want to obsess about it. Jorge Mas has been talking about Champions Cup. I'm not saying he's referring to that, but there's been a lot of talk around the club about how important this is, and in the media too. A lot of the questions in the preseason, even before the MLS season started, a lot of the questions were Conca champions, because that is the one that is an international tournament that is right here at the start of the season. Even before the MLS season started, CONCACAF Champions Cup had already started for the teams that didn't get a bye into the round of 16. So there's been a lot of talk in the preseason about the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and Mascherano has been stressing that they're not choosing one tournament or another as being more important. All of the tournaments are important. All of these things are important. These are all things we want to win. He said you don't want to obsess about one tournament, because then you play nervous and you play scared, and you make mistakes. He said that part in a previous interview, but again here he talked about not obsessing. He said, of course, this is one we want to win, because this is a tournament that we have not won. So, they've got the Leagues Cup trophy, they have an MLS Cup trophy, but they do not have a Champions Cup trophy. They would love to beat a Mexican team, or, any team, but they'd love to be able to beat a Mexican team and lift a Champions Cup trophy. And the biggest thing too is that this is the pathway to the next Club World Cup. So whoever wins this ends up going to the next Club World Cup, which I think is going to be in 2029. And that is something that Inter Miami wants to do. So anyway, he said that, they have, as far as Nashville, it's a very strong opponent. They've had a really good start to the season. They're one of the best teams in the East. They've changed some names, added Espinosa to the attack, which was a big, boost. But basically, they play the same style. He said, especially up there, and this proved to be true yesterday. He said they play very intense from the opening whistle. We have to be ready from the opening whistle. But he said, keeping in mind, this is 180 minutes. He views this, and they should view it as, remember that there are two legs. This is basically a game that is 180 minutes. We have to play smart. Yes, it's important what happens in Nashville, and we want to get a goal because that is a tiebreaker. But remembering that we have a second leg here at home next week. So he's trying to keep it all in perspective and reminding that nothing is over. They're starting with a clean slate, and now they're going to have home field advantage.
Yeah, it's basically a restart this coming Wednesday. It's halftime, you could say, of this series. It's halftime.
It's 90-90. Literally 90 minutes have been played. It's like it's halftime. 90 minutes have been played, and it's 0-0. And then they're going into the second half. And the second half, they will sleep in their own beds. They will be at home for the first time all year. In 8 games. It'll be their first time at home. So they should have an advantage. Plus the extra motivation, Messi going for goal number 900 at home. How nice would it be for him to get the 900 at home in front of the local fans?
They want a goal, but they want a certain number 10 to get the goal, especially because only Cristiano Ronaldo has the 900 goal mark. And as we know in the soccer world, Michelle, you pick a side. People either take Messi as their favorite or they take Ronaldo as their favorite. So he wants this bad to be on that
Oh,
same.
yeah, there's even a listener.
Yeah.
One of the listeners of this podcast, you'll know who you are, has written me saying, why do we mention Ronaldo but calls him other names? But why do we even mention him on our podcast? This podcast is supposed to be about Inter Miami and Messi. And why do we mention the R word on this podcast? So I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Apologies to anybody who doesn't want to hear that name on this podcast.
Yeah.
But the truth is, these are the two players, definitely of this generation, but really of all time, who have dominated all the statistics. And the one who starts with the R has more than 900 goals. And now Messi is going for number 900. So it is definitely a milestone that, believe me, he wants to achieve. He wants to, it's just a number. It seems like it's just a number, but it's not. In sports, certain numbers and milestones are really important in sports. 899 is different from 900.
Absolutely.
So, we had talked about it with Mascherano. We asked him about it. We asked Maxi Falcone. Let's listen in on what Javier Mascherano, who has seen him score a lot of those goals, even as a teammate with Barcelona and with the Argentine national team. Let's see what he had to say about Messi.
Bueno, creo que me lo hicieron el otro día, ¿no? Claramente no dimensionamos, al final hablamos de poder hacer o llegar a hacer 900 goles, es una locura, es increíble, de un jugador único, y bueno, la realidad es que siempre termino diciendo lo mismo. Creo que los números de Leo son asombrosos, pero sobre todo dentro de lo grande que es, lo de las estadísticas es lo menos. Digamos, vos podés hacer un montón de goles, el tema es cómo, y él ha conseguido no solamente llegar a cifras increíbles en cuanto a goles, asistencias, sino también el hecho de lo que le aporta al juego en sí, que creo yo mucho más que sus estadísticas. Entonces la realidad es que bueno, ojalá podamos ayudarlo como equipo a poder alcanzar la cifra de 900 mañana o inclusive superarla. Eso digamos, va a decir que hicimos un buen partido, que pudimos convertir de visitante, que en esta competición es muy importante, y que bueno, y que nos va a dar opciones a poder definir la eliminatoria acá en casa con nuestra gente.
So Mascherano says, look, nobody can really even grasp what it is to score 900 goals. He said it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's incredible from a unique, one-of-a-kind player. But it's not only the number of goals that he scores. He said, yes, he scored this incredible number of goals and has all these assists, but it's how he's done it. And he said to him, in his mind, the stats are the least of what is impressive about Messi. It's what he brings to the game, what he brings to the sport, that it's not just the numbers that are amazing of numbers of goals and assists, but it's what he brings the game and what he has brought the sport. And he said, hope that's what really amazes him. And he said, hopefully we can help him get 900. He said, in Nashville on the road, that would mean that we played a great game on the road and that we'd be set up really well to close this out at home. So they did not help him enough to get number 900 in Nashville. But again, they now have they're going to have a chance in Charlotte, let's just say, before. So maybe he'll score it in Charlotte. If he scores it in Charlotte, then it'll be 900 on the road, and maybe he will surpass it. If he only scores one, if he only scores a mere one goal in Charlotte and ties the R name, then he would come home and perhaps break the record, have the record, hold the record here at home in Fort Lauderdale in front of the home fans. So that would be really, really exciting. We asked Maxi Falcone, a defender, but also a teammate of his, what he thinks about Messi going for 900. Here's what he had to say.
Compañero, un poco mezclando la respuesta que le di a tu colega también, por qué la solidez por ahí defensiva que tratamos de buscar, nosotros como defensores obviamente, por jugadores como él. Javier recién lo mencionaba, ¿no? Dos cosas con las que yo me quedo. Primero, que por ahí no dimensiona a la gente o no dimensionamos a veces nosotros, porque por ahí es normal ya que lo haga 2, 3 goles por partido o 3 asistencias, y lo hemos visto a lo largo de 20 años. Yo desde que empecé a ver fútbol, obviamente ustedes ya lo saben, siempre lo seguí el Barcelona, prácticamente desde que tengo memoria que veo fútbol, y llega un momento que uno se acostumbra a eso y a veces exige más, o les exige a ellos más, que yo creo que son cosas increíbles, ¿no? Yo no voy a descubrir nada diciéndote esto, pero como te digo, a veces uno no se pone a pensar en la pregunta que hace vos o en la respuesta que puede dar, solamente como compañero tratar de disfrutar, de ayudarlo como dice Javier, y a que siga creciendo en estadísticas, pero eso es lo que decía él, ¿no? De lo que genera el rival también a veces, de cuántos jugadores lo van a marcar, de lo que puede romper quizá un esquema de presión del rival o de juego, simplemente a veces ni siquiera tocando la pelota, solamente moviéndose. Nada, tratar de aprovechar eso, como dice mañana, tratar de hacer un buen partido y tratar de, cerrar luego la llave acá en casa.
Okay, Maxi Falcone here. I'm going to talk after about him. I'm going to give you an update on his injury. But Maxi Falcone, one of the best speakers on this team and one of the nicest guys on this team. I know when he's out there, he's this ferocious defender and he's got the wild curly hair, but he's really one of the nicest, friendliest players that this team has ever had. So we in the media, having a press conference with Javier Mascherano sitting beside Maxi Falcone, that is golden for us in the media, because as we know, some players don't talk, or some players speak but don't say much. But these two are both. Mascherano's a great interview. Maxi Falcone is a great interview. So we had a good time speaking with them. He said, as far as Messi, the 900 goals, he said, look, as a defender and just as a player, as a teammate, he said, sometimes we start to think it's normal. Seeing him for so many years, you start to think it's normal. Oh, 2 or 3 goals, 3 assists in a game, 2 or 3 assists, 2 or 3 goals. Like, this is normal. This is not normal. And he said, I've been following him for as long as I've been following soccer, for 20 years, from the time he was little. He said, I was following Barcelona, following his career. And sometimes, though, if you sit back and reflect and think about what it is that he's done and how great he really is, he said that as a teammate, what I want to try to do is enjoy it. I want to try to enjoy it and try to help him reach new milestones. And he said, and the other thing that doesn't get talked about much is how he influences the game when he's not even touching the ball. He said, as far as how many defenders are closing in on him, that opens it up for other people, or how he influences a game just by moving, just by his movement on the field without the ball, he's influencing the game. And that's something that doesn't show up in the statistics, but clearly when Messi is on the field, everyone's eyes are on him, on the other team, and sometimes that distracts them from covering other people. So Maxi Falcone, Javier Mascherano, both incredibly impressed with Messi, as we all are. I wanted to throw in here, Maxi, unfortunately, 5 minutes into the game in Nashville, he went down hard, and he doesn't go down that easily. He's a tough guy, and he went down and was grabbing his knee, was in considerable pain, left the game, was replaced by Lujan, who had only played 3 or 4 minutes this year. So we asked Mascherano after the game for an update on Maxi's injury. And he said, look, it's too early. He's going to obviously have x-rays and testing, but he said he is a really tough guy. And for him to leave a game in the 5th minute, that means there is something there. There is something there. And we just hope that it's not too serious. We hope that it's a minor injury and that he'll be able to recover soon, because he's obviously a key part of the team. He's also a great team leader. He's one of the vocal leaders. He's one of the team leaders, even though he just arrived last year. He has, grown into one of the team leaders and a fan favorite as well. So that would be a massive loss if they lose him for an extended period. That would be a really, really massive loss. So we are wishing Maxi a speedy recovery. And by the time of this next podcast, we'll know much more about how he's doing.
Yeah, it'd be a big blow to their back line there on their defensive end too, especially, we're talking about earlier how Dane St. Clair is adjusting, how this team is, gradually trying to get better on the backside and not allow all these teams to get all these chances. And he's a big part of stopping all of that. So losing him, he's a key cog on that end too. That'd be tough to handle. But it looks like even if maybe it's not the worst, but it was significant enough where who knows, maybe his availability for the next 2 matches might be in doubt here going forward in the near future. But we'll see. Like Michelle said, we'll have more on that down the road. But for now, let's talk about on and off the field. It was an eventful time for Messi and the crew. They got a chance to visit the White House to celebrate their 2025 MLS Cup triumph. How did that go, Michelle? We saw a video of it all over the place from the players' perspective.
Yeah, it was much anticipated. It was, big questions. Are they going to the White House? Are they not going to the White House? The war is going on. So there was some question about maybe they would postpone the visit to the White House, but they ended up squeezing it in. It had been planned. Javier Mascherano stressed when we spoke to him that this had been planned for almost 2 months. And it was planned because they were going to be in DC. So it made sense, here in this country, the champions of all the different leagues, that is a tradition. It's a custom that you go to the White House. That's what we do. We all the presidents, no matter if they're Republican, Democrat, everyone invites the champions to the White House, and they go and they, present their trophies, and the president gives a little speech, and that's a custom in this country. So they were going to be in DC for a game early season. And so they planned this almost 2 months ago, that they were going to be going to the White House on that Thursday. And then there were questions about whether it was going to happen. There's questions, is Messi going to go? Because Messi has always steered away from politics. He's never really gotten involved in politics, never wants to be associated with politics. He has a big brand to preserve. And so he's managed, like Michael Jordan and other people during the height of their playing days. A lot of athletes and celebrities sometimes steer away from anything that could be polarizing. So there were questions, but no, they all showed up. The whole team showed up. Messi walked in the whole team came in first, looking very spiffy in their dark suits with their crest on the chest here, with their dark suits and their fancy shoes. And they all were standing there. And then Messi walked in with President Trump and Jorge Mas. The 3 of them walked in together. And then President Trump started. There were some opening remarks where he did talk about the war, which we're going to ask Dane St. Clair what that was like to be standing there, a bunch of soccer players who, they're there to celebrate their trophy, but they're also having to listen to, an update about a serious issue. So what that was like for them. And then the celebration part started where they talked about the trophy, and President Trump made jokes about how everyone on the team is good looking. He said, is there nobody ugly on this team? I prefer athletes who are not so good looking. All these guys are so good looking, because he went around and he mentioned about Rodrigo de Paul and Messi and Luis Suarez. And anyway, so he made some jokes about her all good looking. And, they had their moment. Then they went to the Oval Office and they got to take pictures, and all the different players posted pictures on social media of themselves, sitting in front of, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, or sitting in the Oval Office, the type of pictures that, are an honor to have. Not that many people get to go to the inner side of the White House. You can do a tour as a tourist, but to get into the White House is, a special moment for anybody. So Dane St. Clair was asked about that. He was also asked in general about, they beat DC United. They went on to beat DC United 2-1. It was a really good win for them, like you said. They started off poorly with the 3-0 loss to LAFC, but then they've gone ahead and beaten Orlando and beaten DC. And Dane St. Clair was asked about how that went. So let's hear from him what he had to say.
Yeah, definitely a full circle moment. I know a couple of my college coaches were here and a couple of my college teammates were here, so definitely a full circle moment to be able to kind of go from playing at the University of Maryland to obviously such a big stadium here.
Dane, you spent several years in Minnesota, obviously, and now you've been here for a few months. Or a few weeks. How different is it, just in terms of the level of fanfare around everything, all the travel, responsibilities, everything going on around the club?
Yeah, I mean, even look at the amount of reporters here too. It's definitely a lot bigger, but I think obviously I know I'm in a bigger market and there's more responsibilities in terms of things like that. But at the end of the day, it's still the goal on the field is still the same. It's to be able to keep the ball at the back of the net and to be able to win games as a team and to be able to lift trophies. So of course, some of the other outside stuff is a little bit amplified, but at the same time, the main goal stays the main goal.
Is it? Do you like it? Do you like all this outside stuff?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it comes with the job, of course. I know what I was signing up for. Obviously, I was a free agent. I chose to come here, so I knew what I was signing up for. But at the same time, living it in is also a different experience as well.
This is a little bit different, right? With the settings, playing in a alternative stadium like this and in LA. It's just a different feel to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely nice to be able to kind of go to away stadiums and know that you probably have more supporters than the actual home team sometimes, which is nice. I think obviously that won't be the case in every single stadium, but I think it was definitely a case tonight.
How was the White House?
Yeah, it was obviously an experience. I think it was a little bit different for me because I wasn't on the team last year. So, but at the same time, not that many people get to be able to kind of go and experience that. So, especially going to school here, I was obviously living in the DMV area, so I was something I was familiar with, and to be inside was definitely an experience for sure.
What was going through your head as President Trump was talking? Like he gets up there and he starts talking about war. Like what was that like?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a little bit awkward. We obviously know that we were there to be congratulated for what the team did last year. So the opening remarks to that, I think, kind of threw a lot of guys off because it was supposed to be about the team and winning last year, and obviously by the same time. So it was definitely a little awkward to be in the background for that, but at the same time, it's something that's out of our control, and we didn't know that was going to be a part of it as well.
So yeah, there you hear from Dane what it was like, a little bit awkward, but still an honor. And he said he felt also a little strange because he wasn't on the team last year. I want to point out that they did invite Fafa Pico was there, even though he's gone on to another team. He's in Atlanta. Fafa was there, and Ryan Saylor was there, who came in from Seattle. So they invited the players who were on the team last year because they are the ones who were the champions. So Dane was saying, for him, I mean, he obviously was proud of his teammates now, but he was not on that team. He was actually an opponent last year when they won this trophy. So for him, it was not quite maybe the same feeling of, these are the guys who lifted the trophy last year. He had been asked in a previous interview about adapting, and he said, here he talked about adapting to the lifestyle of being on this team. He said, look, I was a free agent and I chose to come here. So this is what I was, this is what I signed up for, right? We heard him say it. This is what I signed up for. This is what he wanted. And he said before the season that the reason he wanted to be under the glare of the spotlight, because he's on the Canadian national team and he's fighting for a spot to be the starter in the World Cup for for one of the three host countries, Canada. So being in Minnesota, he was a little bit in the background of MLS, not a high-profile team, not a team that gets a lot of media coverage, not a team that is under the spotlight the way this team is. And he said, and has said a few times, that one of the reasons he chose to come here was to have these kind of high-pressure moments, to have more media coverage, to have more fans in the stands. And by the way, this game against DC, they moved it from the DC stadium to Baltimore, and they had 72,000 people. So 72,000 people showed up in Baltimore to see this game between DC United and Inter Miami. And obviously a large reason for that is Messi, the Messi factor. Even though he's already entering his fourth year season, it's still a big deal for a lot of people who have never seen him play. wherever he goes, if that's
Yeah.
someone's first chance, they're going to buy a ticket. The
It's
novelty maybe has worn off in some places, like at Chase Stadium, where people have already seen him in South Florida. So they're still trying to draw new fans to come see him for the first time. But when he goes to a place like Baltimore, or out in LA, they're drawing 72,000, 75,000 people
right.
to see him play. And that is what Dane wanted. That's what Dane wanted.
You want the circus, you're going to get the circus, because think about it. Yeah, we were saying you had an exhibition game postponed and played already during the season because of him. You had a team go from BMO Stadium in LA, that 20,000 capacity more or less, and pack the LA Coliseum to the second largest crowd in MLS history, period.
Yes.
And now, even this game, like you said, 72,000, they're playing this game at the Ravens Stadium in Baltimore to be able to fit the amount of people that want to see Messi. And it's not going to be the last. It's going to happen again and again the rest of the way for the next year, 2 years. Well, for the next 2 years that are left on his contract. Yeah, you wanted to be with the rock stars.
The influence that he has, right?
You want to be with the rock stars. You're in the band. You're in the band now, Dane St. Clair.
You're in the band now, Dane.
And play.
Dane, like
grab the drumsticks, grab the guitar, whatever.
Like Dorothy said, like Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, Toto, you're not in Kansas anymore. Dane, you're not in Minnesota anymore. You are in Miami. You are in the pink traveling circus. You've seen it from afar. Now you're in it. And this is what it's like. There's going to be more media. There's going to be more questions. There's going to be more 72,000 fans, 75,000 fans. He was not playing in front of those kind of crowds, but he's a smart guy. And he said, he had options of where he could have gone. And he said, I chose to come here because this is going to help me with the World Cup too. He's going to be playing, in the World Cup in front of humongous crowds. And getting these experiences playing with the pink circus is going to help him with the Canadian national team. So, it's interesting that I think it was one of the reasons people choose to play on this team is they want to be Messi's teammate. But also in this case for him, for Dane St. Clair, going into a World Cup year, being able to play the first 5 months with Lionel Messi under the glare is something that was really very calculated for him. And I think it was a wise decision. And he is now he seemed like he was a little, out of his element the first couple of games, and who could blame him? He doesn't speak the language either of all the defenders other than Noah Allen and Ian Frey. Everyone else is speaking Spanish. So he's had an adaptation period. But he seems to be blending in now and getting more confidence. So it'll be interesting to see. By the way, that game against DC, Rodrigo de Paul scored a beautiful goal, by the way, which he has not scored that many goals since he arrived. He scored a really nice goal to get things started. And Berterame kind of started that play. And then Segovia had the assist. Rodrigo de Paul scored. And then Messi on a beautiful assist from Silvetti. Messi once again scored, the way he does goals, that there's like a bunch of defenders all around, and somehow he threads the needle. He just threads the needle.
$8.99.
So for $8.99 for goal number 899. So now now we wait.
Now we wait. And it happened in Charlotte. We'll see. On Saturday is the next, like we said, the league play. Very early, but points to be had for this team in the long marathon that is the MLS league season. So they want to get that, and then obviously at Nashville they want to get the advancement potentially there. But also, I know we wanted to wrap up the show talking a little bit about the World Cup, Michelle, and what's going on there. The U.S. has picked its training site, and what's the latest they've heard about the Iranian team, considering in light of the war going on.
Yeah, that's a big issue right now, is the Iranian team, because their sporting minister said yesterday that there's no way they're not going to accept an invitation to come play in the United States when they're at war right now with the United States. So they're saying, at least, I mean, it's not official that they're not coming, but that is the word from there, is that they're not going to accept an invitation, that they would not play, which would really be, it's just like all of these political situations that end up, seeping into sports, like with the Olympic boycotts. It's a shame for those athletes because that Iranian team, they have already qualified. They're supposed to play New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt in the group stage. Two of the games are at SoFi Stadium, one game in California, one game in Seattle. So, you know, they've been planning to come. They've qualified. Those players have worked their entire lives and dreamed of coming to the World Cup, just like all the other players who are soccer players around the world. They dream of coming to the World Cup. So just like the Olympians, 1980, 1984, the boycotts with Russia, with LA, it really is a shame for those athletes because they don't get a chance. These are quadrennial events, just like the Olympics. I'm going to go off a little tangent here, but again, because it's a quadrennial event like the Olympics, I covered for a long time at the University of Miami, Randy Abelman, who was the diving coach at and he had qualified as a diver for the 1980 Olympics, and he trained his whole life for the Olympics, and he qualified for the Olympics, and then they boycotted those Olympics. And when that happens, you can say, oh, well, he can go to the next one. It's not like another sport where there's another game next week. It's 4 more years until the next Olympics. And so he never was able to make it. Randy Abelman would have been on the Olympic team in 1980, never got the opportunity because of politics. And then he never got to go. So he ended up coaching many Olympians over his career, and he kind of lived vicariously through them. But he never got an opportunity to walk in the opening ceremonies of an Olympics. And for these athletes, if there's a World Cup and a team pulls out, it's such a shame for those athletes because 4 years is a long time. And there are young players on the team who maybe will still be around 4 years later. But A, you don't know if your team is going to qualify 4 years later. And B, for the older players, where this is their final shot, that's it. Their career will end without a World Cup appearance when that was their dream. So I'm hoping that somehow this all works out, that all the teams, the 48 teams, will be able to come participate in the World Cup because they're athletes. At the end of the day, they're athletes. It's a shame when they become political pawns, which happens all the time. It happens in every sport. Like I said, it happens in the Olympics. But what would happen if they don't come is then who would come in their place? I suppose maybe the team that finished next in qualifying. I don't know, honestly, right now who that is. I'm not sure what would happen then. Someone else would come. They wouldn't make a 47-team tournament. Someone would come in the place of Iran as the next team that qualified behind them. So we will see what happens with that, but it's that's definitely a big issue right now. We had talked before about Mexico and the security there. I think that's being worked out. Things have calmed down over there, and for now anyway. And then the other big news this week was, as teams are announcing where they're going to be training for the team base camp, U.S. men's national team will be based in Irvine, California. They're going to play Paraguay in one game. They're going to play Australia, and then they're waiting for their third opponent to find out who it is from the playoffs. But they will be based in Irvine. It's a USL facility. It's a soccer specific facility that's very first class facility out there in Irvine. And that is where, if you're a US fan and you want to be hanging around where the US team is going to be for a good few weeks before the tournament, head to Irvine, California.
Yep, there you go. And it'll be interesting to see how the U.S. does too, because it's gone in waves. We had for a while there. People were concerns. There was talk already of dismissing Mauricio Pochettino. Then all of a sudden there was a bit of a rise. Suddenly they started to play well, picked up some key wins, won a couple of games people didn't expect them to. So how is this team going to gel when it counts this summer? And can they make some noise? Can they do something? Can this be one of those World Cups where they take a step forward, maybe make it to the knockout stage? And who knows? We'll see. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. It would be great for them to do it on home soil. They have an opportunity here. They're very familiar, obviously, with the United States, with a lot of these stadiums. even the players who don't play in MLS and play abroad, they're very familiar with these stadiums, with these venues. They're going to have the American crowd behind them. So, this is a chance. I mean, the last time that they did really, really well was under Bruce Arena in 2002. I covered that Olympics in Japan and Korea with Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley. That team made it to the quarters, which was amazing for an American team to get
in the round of 16 where Landon scored. Yep.
Yeah, that was an incredible World Cup for the United States. And here's one in the US. Now that MLS, the last time the World Cup was in the United States was 1994. MLS didn't even exist. There was not a league the size of MLS. Now you're talking this time the soccer landscape in the United States is much different than it was in 1994. The media here is more savvy. The fans are more savvy. Much more soccer is shown on TV. We have a league here now. So, I mean, a big league. We've always had leagues. I don't want to dismiss NASL and other leagues that have been around, but there is a big league playing in big stadiums, drawing crowds of 70,000 when Messi plays anyway. So yeah, we're all grown up now. The training wheels are off. The USA is a big time, big boy country now as far as soccer, men's soccer goes. They've been a big girl. Women's soccer has already been succeeding a lot here in the United States. It's time for the men's team now to show up on home soil.
Yeah, and if you remember, 94 also was another time that the U.S. made it to the knockout stage. Actually went toe-to-toe pretty well with Brazil, if I remember, 1-0 loss. But at the time, Brazil was ridiculously good, Brazil. And the U.S. at that time, like you said, no league at the time, no major league at the time, but still that kind of like that team trying to prove something, made it through, got to that round of 16 with Alexi Lawless and a bunch of others. We'll see. It'll be interesting to follow this summer for sure. But in the immediate future, Inside Inter Miami will be back next week, talking a little bit about how the Inter Miami team did against Charlotte in league play. And then we'll either be before. What do you think, Michelle? Should we do before the second leg or come out like we're doing this week, come in after? Just want to tell the watching and listening audience when to find us next week. Maybe we do again after the second leg of Nashville.
Maybe right after the second leg, so we can talk about two games and see if they advanced or they didn't advance.
Yeah, so we'll have all of that, and we'll look beyond and see, if the Champions Cup is still a possibility by that point, or where they stand with league play beyond that. And we'll have any other news. Follow Michelle's work on MiamiHerald.com as always. You'll have tons of stuff about the team as well as anything new that comes out of the prelude to the World Cup. Until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami. Enjoy the games, everybody. We'll see you next week.